Thanks, Jenny. Okay, right, I've got a note there, recording started. Okay, thanks very much. Good morning, everyone. It's a meeting of the Joint Waste Collection Service Committee on the 11th of December via Teams. First of all, we just run through apologies. Over to you, Jenny, for those, but I think we know most of them.
Thank you, Chair. We've had apologies from George Pargeter from Amy, and we've had apologies from Emma from Mole Valley, and Chris is subbing today.
Yeah.
Could you add Kim to those apologies as well, please?
Is that Ian? So, yeah, I haven't had any apologies, but thanks for letting me know she won't be here, and Ian, you'll be in her place. Thank you.
Yeah, she was coming up till about 45 minutes ago.
Thanks very much.
Okay, good. Item number 2 is previous minutes. So first of all, do we think those are an accurate record of the meeting held? Yes, some nods. There were some actions from those minutes. So one or two of them I think could probably be taken later on in the bulk of the agenda items. But just specifically, JWS requested Amy shared their leafing plan. Did that actually happen? Did you receive that, Joe?
We had confirmation of the sort of additional resource that was being hired or provided as part of the leafing work. I think we've still got some queries that we're just trying to clarify how we're sort of sharing the information on what's being completed at each stage of that, and how we can share that to residents via websites, etc.
Okay. Well, will that come up again later on then in another agenda item? Did you want to bring that one up?
It's possible it'll come up as part of the discussion with Ian later, quite possibly, yes.
Yeah, okay. There were garden waste ICT issues, which Ian reported, but you said you had a meeting coming up straight after our previous meeting, which was an Amy and Whitespace discussion to discuss those ICT issues. Did that happen, and have they been resolved?
The meeting did happen, but I can't say too much about it because it's been included in the litigation.
Right, okay. There was an item about SCC's SEP work programme. It was supposed to be shared by the 20th of October. I never received anything. I don't know whether any other councillors received an SEP work programme by the 20th of October. I know that there is one because I pestered Ian yesterday for it. So I think it seems to have been shared with officers, but not with members.
Okay, that's interesting. We'll happily share it with you. I will take the action and I'll get Nick Meadows to send it round to all Joint Contract Authority members so that you've got it. Right.
And of course, there have been no SEP meetings since the change, which was a year ago.
Yeah, exactly, which is, yeah, slightly bizarre, I would say.
I might bring that up separately then with their portfolio holder for the environment to ask her what's happening and why haven't we been briefed?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. There was also an item that we discussed, the Tetra Pak collections, because they're supposed to be collected from April 26. JWS, you were going to try and seek an update from Surrey County Council.
Yes, so we've got as far as agreeing some principles of continuing with the Tetra Pak banks that were still in situ in Elmbridge and Mole Valley until we can accept that material at the curbside in a few months' time. So they are still in place. They haven't been removed, but we are still kind of in the throes of trying to sort of iron out exactly what the terms of that are and get sort of some formal sort of agreements in place with the company that previously provided that service on behalf of ACE UK, and are indicating that they can do that as a short-term arrangement where those banks are still in situ for the next few months, but it just needs a bit of formalisation.
Okay. I mean, do we know then that Surrey are going to be in a position to collect Tetra Packs from April and properly recycle them?
It's the expectation that the facilities will be able to accept that so that we can include it in the curbside service, yes.
Okay. So there'll obviously need to be some comms on the changes to our waste collections. Rosemary, over to you.
Thank you. I can't see it in the minutes, but I thought we had requested, this is for Ian, the Amy improvement plan to have it circulated. It's very difficult to read the spreadsheets and things on the presentation. I wondered if that's possible.
I can send you the presentations which have all the improvement plans in. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really helpful, Ian.
Okay, good. Thanks. Any other matters arising that people want to bring up from the last minutes? Nope. Okay, good. Thank you for that. Does anybody have any declarations of interest under item 3? No. Okay, thank you. Right, so on to item 4 then, quarterly performance report, which is over to you, Kelly.
Thank you very much. So Joe is actually going to share the slides for me because I can't seem to get them working so I can see the notes at the same time. So Joe's going to pop the slides up. Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so you will have had the full report as part of the agenda pack. And this is basically some slides just summarising what that report is telling us. So this gives us an update on the recycling, residual waste and the operational performance for Q2, which is July to September of 2025 to 26. We can go on to the next slide, please, Joe. So before we look at the Joint Contract Authority performance, it's important to kind of highlight the wider Surrey curbside trends. So this slide compares recycling and residual waste tonnages in Surrey to the Joint Contract Authorities for Q2 25-26 versus Q2 24-25. So across Surrey, garden waste shows a large drop, while food waste and dry mixed recyclables rose modestly and residual waste has slightly decreased. For the Joint Contract Authorities, in Elmbridge, most streams decreased, especially the residual waste, which you can see at minus 7.3%. In Mole Valley, recycling and garden waste fell, but food waste has risen by 3.9%. In Surrey Heath, there were strong drops in the dry mixed recycling and more significantly with the garden waste, but also a notable increase in residual waste at 5%. Woking had mostly small decreases, except for a rise in food waste at 2.6%. And the main consistent pattern is the significant reductions in the garden waste across all areas. But if you remember, we had a very dry summer and everything was brown, so there wasn't really anything growing that could actually be cut to go into the garden waste bins. Next slide, please, Joe. Thank you. So for the quarter-on-quarter comparisons of tonnages across the 4 streams, we'll start with the dry mixed recycling. So the dry mixed recycling fell in Elmbridge by 40 tonnes, in Mole Valley by 105 tonnes, in Surrey Heath by 152 tonnes, and in Woking by just 4 tonnes. Next slide, please, Joe. For food waste performance, Elmbridge fell by 17 tonnes, Surrey Heath fell by 6 tonnes, but Mole Valley rose by 27 tonnes and Woking rose by 23 tonnes. On the garden waste, in Elmbridge, it fell by 165 tonnes, Mole Valley 233 tonnes, Surrey Heath 264 and Woking 251. Residual waste. So the residual waste fell by 387 tonnes in Elmbridge, 98 in Mole Valley and 126 tonnes in Woking, whereas Surrey Heath saw an increase of 144 tonnes. Next slide, please, Jo. Thank you. So this slide compares the recycling and residual waste tonnages in Surrey and the joint contract authorities. It's looking at the 12 months that runs to September 2025 versus the same period ending September 2024. So a bigger comparison period, really, rather than just looking at the quarterly periods that we've looked at previously. Over the full 12-month period, Surrey sees small declines in the dry mixed recyclables and residual waste, a slight rise in food waste, and a large consistent drop in the garden waste. For the joint contract authorities, in Elmbridge, there were slight decreases across all streams, and again, a larger drop in the garden waste. In Mole Valley, dry mixed recycling, food and garden waste fell, and residual waste rose slightly at 1.4%. In Surrey Heath, there was a notable reduction in the dry mixed recycling and garden waste, but the residual waste increased by 3.2%. In Woking, dry mixed recycling and garden waste fell, food rose by 2.3% and residual was broadly steady. Excuse me, overall, again, the pattern is that the garden waste is the biggest driver of the change, with some smaller shifts amongst the other waste streams. On to the next slide, Jo, please. So again, breaking it down by the different material streams, over the 12-month period, the dry mixed recycling tonnages fell in all areas. Elmbridge by 120 tonnes, Mole Valley 152, Surrey Heath 233 and Woking by 314 tonnes. For food waste, Elmbridge fell by 27 tonnes, Mole Valley by 45 and Surrey Heath by 58, while Woking increased by 81 tonnes. As we've already said, the garden waste fell sharply across all areas. Elmbridge by 987 tonnes, Mole Valley by 1,025, Surrey Heath by 893 and Woking by 948 tonnes. And on to the residual waste. So the residual waste increased by 178 tonnes in Mole Valley and 370 in Surrey Heath, with 55 tonnes increase in Woking, but it fell notably in Elmbridge by 644 tonnes. So looking at the recycling rate performance, this slide looks at both the quarterly and the 12-month positions. So for the quarterly trends, all of Surrey and Elmbridge showed slight improvements at 0.7% and 0.9% respectively. But Mole Valley, Surrey Heath and Woking experienced declines, with Surrey Heath dropping the most at 3.1%. The 12-month trends, only Elmbridge saw a slight improvement over the year at 0.1%. All the other regions declined, with Surrey Heath again showing the largest drop at minus 2.4%. Moving now on to the AME contract KPI performance. Excuse me. So this looks at the this quarter compared to the last quarter. We're starting with Elmbridge. So Elmbridge generally improved, with reductions in the missed collections, missed assisted collections and missed collections not rectified within the service level agreement. It also continued to meet targets for litter and detritus, but it was the only area to report waste separation failures. On to Mole Valley. So Mole Valley's Q2 figures currently reflect only July and August 2025, as we're still waiting for the September data. As a result, averages have been provided for each of the KPIs, and these figures are obviously provisional and subject to change. Mole Valley saw increases across most missed collection measures, including a significant rise in missed collections not rectified within the service level agreement. However, street cleaning performance and incidents of fly tipping, fly posting or graffiti non-removal improved, and Mole Valley met the litter and detritus targets for the first time since Q2 of 2023-24. Moving on to Surrey Heath. Surrey Heath recorded increases in most missed collection categories, though overall their numbers remained low. It reported no street cleaning or graffiti related failures and continued to meet the litter and detritus targets. And moving on to Woking. Woking remained broadly steady, but did experience increases in spillage reports, assisted and non-assisted failures to collect, and repeat missed collections. And that brings me to the end of the slide deck. I can see Morgan's got a hand up.
Okay, shall we just do it in order of the presentation? So go through the councils one by one. So if I do Elmbridge first, yeah, I mean, generally good that there was a downward trend in most things, and I suppose actually the fact that the recycling tonnages were less across the board is actually quite a good thing, and is the whole purpose of EPR, that we should be reducing the tonnages of recycling goods. So you know, that trend should, if anything, should accelerate under EPR. I noticed in the useful digest rather than the tables, KPI 11 for Elmbridge, the street cleaning performance failure was up from 55 in Q1 to 69 per month in this quarter. But so perhaps we'll maybe not dwell on street cleaning now, because I'm assuming that will come up again when Ian gives his presentation. I'm also a bit concerned that fly tipping worsened, 106 per month from 98 per month is what the text says. I'm not too sure what those are measuring though. It's, you know, what are we measuring when we say 106 per month fly tipping? Any idea, Kelly?
Yeah, no, I'm going to let Jo take this one because Jo's better at.
Okay.
On the KPI figures, the street cleaning and fly tipping numbers are relating to the number of incidents that have been cleared but not been done within the SLAs of the contract. So there are timings specified on street cleaning depending on the zone, and fly tips or graffiti depending on the nature of it as to how quickly that needs to be cleared, and that's indicating where incidences haven't been done within that SLA.
Right, okay, that's useful to know. Good, thanks very much. Okay, so next on the list then, which is next council? Probably sorry, Mole Valley.
Is it me?
If you're going alphabetically, it'd be Mole Valley.
We'll do it in the order of the presentation. So Mole Valley next. Anything,
Okay.
Rosemary?
Yes, there were some good points. Obviously, on the street cleaning, there's improvement. I still have issues with this recycling rate because of the targets, our individual targets. So as you say, Ashley, we want to see the DMR going down, but we could do with some contextual information, because if we've got targets, you know, we're below target quite often. It would be good to have the contextual information to explain why we want to see that going down. I saw some good figures on food recycling in Mole Valley, which is good to see. Yes, now going on to the KPIs, that's a lot more disappointing. So certainly on the first four, I have to say what I usually say, which is we are so much worse than the other areas. So on double or more than double the figures on KPIs 1, 2, and 4, more than double the next highest. So, you know, really bad on those KPIs. So that's missed collections, missed assisted collections, and repeat missed collections. And on KPI 3, missed collections not rectified. It wasn't double, but it was significantly higher than in the other 3 areas. So obviously we're still concerned about that. And I don't think these figures, quarter 2, I don't think. Oh, they would have been affected somewhat by the flaw in our depot, but I don't think that can explain this continuous pattern. I shall leave it there. Thank you.
If it's okay, I'll come in then on the recycling rate one, and then I don't know if Ian wants to say anything on the contract performance side. So on the recycling rate, what we're seeing is that whilst the figures are going in the wrong direction, they are in line with what's happening nationally. So it's not like anything different is happening, you know, across the joint contract authorities than is being seen elsewhere. When the recycling rate is calculated, it does include the garden waste in there. And because we had such a dry summer, it has had a significant impact on the recycling rate. So we saw overall about a 30% reduction in garden waste tonnages over the summer period to what we would typically pick up. So it's a significant drop. And that's material that, you know, you're not going to get back. It's not going to arise somewhere else. So it is lost tonnage, which means it's lost percentages from a recycling rate perspective. And that's unfortunately something that we've got no control over at all. What we are seeing though is that we're seeing we're seeing an increase in the residual waste tonnages, which is the bit that we would like to try and tackle a bit more if we can. So whether it's that people are becoming complacent and, you know, they're not using the recycling bins or the food waste bins as much as they perhaps had been in the past, you know, or whether it is general residual waste material is the bit that we're trying to identify. So the County Council has recently done a small composition analysis, and they're doing another one in the not too distant future. So what we're going to do is utilise some of that information to see if we can work out, is it complacency? You know, or is it genuine residual waste that is going into the residual waste bins? That will then help us to tackle, or, you know, try and come up with a plan as to how we can tackle the problem. But like I say, what is happening across Surrey is consistent with what is happening nationally. We're not seeing anything different, and largely it's the performance reduction at the moment is as a result of the dry summer. It's the garden waste. So I'll stop there on the recycling side, but I don't know, Ian, if you want to talk about the contract performance.
Yeah, I can do, Kelly. It's in my presentation. But thank you, Councillor Hobbs, and it's okay. But in terms of the service at Mole Valley, 100%, it's all down to the workshop being closed. A lot of it is the length of time it's taken us to get vehicles serviced at third parties. The length of time that repairs take that would only take half an hour to repair. We're sometimes waiting over 90 minutes just for a fitter to get to that vehicle, and then it's got to be repaired, and that's if it can be repaired at roadside. We've got vehicles that would be serviced in half a day are taking up to 3 to 4 days to be serviced. We're having to take people out of service to actually deliver them vehicles to the third parties, which then we haven't got enough staff to man all the routes. So this has taken a lot longer than it should have done, in my opinion. We have asked for KPI relief from JWS on this without success, and we've also asked for to be looked at in terms of compensation from Mole Valley, which we're in conversation with at the moment about that. So the service has gone through a really bad patch. We still haven't got the workshop fully back yet. We're hoping that does materialise in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, it's the service is down to the workshop floor. There are some other things as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Kelly. For it will be very useful to have that additional information from Surrey on the recycling. Excuse the phone in the background. It'll go away in a minute. Ian, I understand the workshop has been up and running for a few days now. So I take it from what you've said that we'd expect a significant improvement, because this week we're still getting an awful lot of missed collections. I think measures were put in place at the workshop, a temporary repair facility. So it's different from our point of view. It's difficult to see that everything can be blamed on that. I understand from seeing the reports that there are a lot of reports of sickness amongst the crew, and obviously the repairs to vehicles are understandable. That's taking longer.
The workshop is not fully operational this week. There is an issue with water ingress on the rear door, which was damaged during the repair, and Steadline are not taking responsibility for it. So we can't use it fully at the moment.
I understood that was being attended to.
Not from the email I've just received today.
Okay, well, we need to find out more about that.
Okay.
Kelly, I certainly don't think it can all be blamed on the workshop floor, because this is going back an awfully long time.
The workshop was closed in July, Councillor Hobbs.
Yes, I know, and we made mitigating arrangements.
Okay. I think that might be a separate issue then for Mole Valley to bring up with AWS and Amy. Kelly, you had your hand up previously. Did you want to come back on any of those points?
I did, but Jo's put her hand up, and I'm guessing she's going to say what I'm going to say, so I shall leave it to Jo.
Okay.
Thanks. I was just going to add, Ian mentioned about correspondence with Mole Valley and ourselves, and with JWS in particular on KPI. He indicated that that's been refused, but actually we're still reviewing the request on that, so it's still under discussion.
Right.
So,
okay.
Clarify
right. That. Okay. Thanks for your patience, Morgan. But it's Heath's turn next.
Thank you, Ashley. It's a couple of points. I think Kelly kind of did explain this. Is how are we explaining the decreases in DMR and food waste? Because I definitely agree, garden waste, you can almost take garden waste, while it is part of the whole wider picture, you can take garden waste out. But when you look at DMR and food waste, they're reducing, but we're not seeing the reductions in residual. So it's almost the question of where's it going? Is it and that is that understanding I would like to have more of are people just and I think that maybe potentially come from, as you're saying, that composition analysis. Are we seeing food being chucked in the bin rather than going into the food waste bins? Fine. And also in Surrey Heath, we have recently had the rollout of the food waste bins to the flatted developments. I'm just wondering, we wouldn't have the information for this one, and I was wondering, in the next quarter, will we be able to see an impact of the rollout of those on food waste as well, just so we can have that more of a kind of as potentially an informative of sorts of as well. My other concern as well with the kind of the reductions in recycling generally in the tonnage is, and I think we can almost look at it as when SEP went back to the county, I would say there's been a marked change in the outward work of SEP compared to when it, maybe I'm biased, but compared to when it was under JWS, of the kind of public encouragement and the public outreach work with regards that was being underdone on encouraging recycling and encouraging all of that work. So that would be very keen to, I would be keen to understand from county as well, and that would work into the work plan, work programme of what county is doing to pick up the work that SEP was doing previously, because I think, and that maybe it's my own personal opinion, but I think there has been a marked change in the outward kind of communication work of SEP, and maybe that could be an explanation of has there become a complacency. My final point, and it's on kind of the KPIs, and I think as Rosemary was mentioning, is what we are seeing across the board is in not massive increases, but slight increases in kind of missed collections. I'm just wondering if Ian, but you'll probably answer this later in your presentation. I'm just wondering, how are we explaining that? Is there an issue that we need to address now in terms of staffing, workforce, etc., that is leading to a set of missed collections that are kind of on the increase? So even though Surrey Heath still got a very good rate, in my opinion, and we're below our target, but we are seeing those increases. So it's just, maybe if you want to answer that later, Ian, I'm more than happy for you to answer it later. It's just how we are explaining that, and I guess the next question is, what are we doing to correct it? Thank you.
Okay, over to you, Ian.
So I know Kelly was first, but I will answer that, Councillor Morgan. I suppose we've got a little bit stricter in what we do in terms of, so we're going through a project at the moment, and it's not in my presentation because we're not fully there yet, but going through a project at the moment of looking at residents have extra bins as well and put more than they should have out. So I think there's still reports coming in that they think they should have all their bins emptied. So that will add to missed collections, I believe, and return requests. But that's across the whole estate, really. So we're looking at that at the moment. There has been and was an increase in sickness levels, which would have affected it only slightly. But that is later in my presentation. But so that would affect missed collections. That would only boil down to it. So he's a good performing depot. We all know that. You know, and you know, the slightest increase, Michelle does not like an increase in her figures. So she jumps on it straight away. So yeah, but yeah, I think you know, with us now saying that we're only going to empty, if you're scheduled for one container, we're only going to empty one container, you're going to get a hiccup in the system where people will say, oh, you've missed my bin, and you know, and it gets reported. So we're working closely with JWS to alleviate that and get to a nice point where we know exactly how many bins that people should be having. So that's the only thing I can put it down to at the moment. So
just on that, sorry, thank you, Ian, for that. I think that's interesting. And I guess this is more of a question probably for Joe, is just how are we ensuring that people who potentially have more than one bin, that all of that information is correctly put through the system, so we iron out those hiccups as early as possible? I'm not sure who's best to answer that question. Sorry, Joe, if I dumped you in there.
I suppose a bit of me, because I need to give Jo the information and her team. We need to give her JWS that information so they can check their records are correct, or what we are going to do about that. But that's a bigger picture, I think, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Rice.
It's all right. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's not. You're not the first person to say that. It's fine.
No, it's the other way around on my system.
I'm not sure my connection's working. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Apologies because my screen's frozen. So, but if you can hear me, that's fine. If it's okay, I'll just come back on that. Yeah, I think it is really important that we understand sort of in advance where this work's being done by Amy to sort of address people with additional containers. There are properties where that extra capacity has been approved, and that should be showing on the system. But I think in Woking, the team have sometimes found that there's a discrepancy, so we're needing to review that and fix it. I think the discussion we want to have with Amy probably in a bit more detail is ensuring that if crews are leaving additional containers where they're not authorised, that they're correctly locking those out on the in-cab so that people can't report a miscollection and sort of skew the figures. And equally, if there are crews that think there are particular pockets of areas where that's an issue, that we have sort of advance notice of that. So because it would be better if we could issue some communications in advance before the crew starts sort of being more rigid in enforcing the one bin rule that we have everywhere, because that might sort of make people aware, give them some advance warning, and sort of prevent any friction between residents and the crews, which unfortunately is something we've seen happen in Woking in the last few days, and has taken a bit of time and effort to remedy and make sure that those collections are then performed in a safe way for the staff doing the work.
Okay, before we come back to Morgan, then Kelly, did you want to come in there?
So mine's on Morgan's first questions. I think in relation to the dry mixed recycling in the food, then yes, it is about let's look at that composition analysis, see what it tells us. Off the back of that, I plan on asking my team to produce a paper that analyses the context for us and how that compares nationally, and think about what actions we can take to try and turn things around, basically. On the food rollout side of things, it is quite a small rollout in comparison to the size of your borough. But what we can do is see, the officers doing it from the SEP side of things will be monitoring the tonnages that get collected within set periods of time after the rollout took place. So we can get that information to see how much effect it's had in terms of the tonnage that they've done in comparison to other rollouts that we've done, to see how effective it's been. But I'm not sure you'll necessarily see, a significant change in your overall recycling performance purely because of the size of the rollout by comparison, but we can still look at the effectiveness. On the SEP work programme, you're absolutely right. We haven't had any campaign material come through. I think the first planned campaign that SEP were looking at doing was going to be in the new year, and I believe it's on dry mixed recycling contamination, although don't quote me on that, I may have got that wrong. However, they have produced some Christmas campaign material, so we have picked that up, and Caroline within the JWS team is looking at putting that out, and she's working with your respective comms teams to get that campaign material out as well. But it certainly has been much quieter in terms of campaign activity and material that we can use to help communicate. Whether that has or hasn't had a direct or significant impact, it's difficult to tell, as it is when you're measuring any communications campaigns, but it certainly helps to have that continual feed of messages to residents reminding them what they should be doing. But I think again it's coming back to let's look at that composition data and see how that can help us.
Okay, thanks Kelly. Morgan, back to you.
Thank you. Just on the bit, like on the project that Ian was mentioning and kind of Joe's response as well, I'm just wondering, are we doing any communication with residents? Because I'm sure because residents, if they have more than one bin, will have had to have applied to get that bin and probably pay to get that extra bin. And I'm just wondering, we should have that information of who would have that extra bin. Are we doing anything just to make sure that they're aware that we're also reminding residents that if they have more than one bin, that they should let us know so that they can ensure that it gets collected. I completely understand the need for the project, and I completely understand the kind of intention behind it. I just want to make sure that we're not just kind of unintentionally leaving residents kind of in alert for a period of time before it catches up. Can we be a bit more proactive in encouraging residents to make sure that they are aware of that? In terms of SEP, are there any, because I know we haven't had a meeting. Have there been meetings with officers across the 11 Ds and Bs with county at all? Has there been any kind of engagement? Because personally, when you look at the figures, and Surrey Heath's been a high performing borough in the past on this, like we're seeing over the last year, we have been seeing that kind of fall backwards. Which would, in my opinion, coincide with SEP going into the county council, and that's a clear almost a clear kind of correlation between a cessation, kind of an ending of campaigning and a reduction in the recycling. So I would be very keen to understand what the county is actually doing. Are they engaging with the boroughs and districts at all, or are they just kind of pulling up the drawbridge?
Do you want me to come back in relation to the SEP side of
Yes,
things?
please.
Yeah, so there has been some engagement. It took longer than I think Surrey County Council planned to get the work programme out to the officers to, first of all, to review and feedback on, and then for them to finalise. So I can't remember exactly when we got the work programme, but it's been fairly recently. There have been a couple of officer meetings. So one of them was to look at the content of the work programme, and it was kind of like a launch session, if you like, where the county council launched the work programme to the officers. And then there's been a further session, which I think was more of a working group, but was around obviously updating SEP 2025 to look at how we can extend that to effectively SEP 2027 when LGR would then kick in. And they have sent round a draft of the SEP 2027 document for officers to review and feedback on, I believe by today actually, might have been yesterday, was the deadline for feeding back. So there's been a couple of meetings, but they have been more recent. There was a kind of quiet period, if you like, from when the SEP officers originally transferred over to County Council from the 1st of April through, I would say, pretty much until late summer, early autumn time. But we are now starting to see, as I've said, the work programme, the drafting of the SEP 2027, and we've now got this Christmas campaign material come through. And we've also, were successful in getting some consultancy time from the County Council to be able to develop the service guides. So we did get in quite quick to get that part going. But other than that, I don't disagree. It has been fairly quiet.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. Right, well, that leads us on to back to Ian on the AME Improvement Plan update. And I think you've got some slides. Oh, sorry, Mark, you had your hand up.
Hi, yeah, sorry, just in terms of Wokin's performance, if that's okay. I think Ellen's managed to join, but I think her connectivity is a bit in and out. So she asked me a question to raise about slippage on the KPIs. And I think looking at the report, predominantly that would link to assisted collections. So it looks like the number of assisted collection misses and repeat assisted collection misses has increased. Now, I just wondered, assisted collections is an interesting one because that should be flagged. There's almost a proximity, I think I recall, from the IT system that flags where the crews are approaching where an assisted collection is required. So we'd expect those numbers to be almost as close to zero as you can get. So be interested, Ian, if you could just share how assisted collections are managed and why we're seeing an increase over the last period.
Yeah, historically, a number of reasons assisted collections are missed. It is flagged in the system. The crews all know what it looks like. It's on the handheld device. A lot of the time they get missed because the container isn't where it should be. in terms of where it is on the property. It may have been moved. I do know of one, especially in Woking, that it took a while to correct because the bin was actually in the wrong place where it was agreed it would be. So that's the only reasons why they get missed, is that they're not in the correct place. Yeah, that's really it. You know, a lot of the missed assists tend to be food as well.
Okay. Do we get to the bottom of because typically they're unassisted because the person residing there is unable to shift a bin. So do we get to the bottom as to why a bin might not be in the normal location?
We don't ask that question.
Yeah. Okay. The other KPI that sorry, Joe, did you want to come in on that?
If you don't mind, I was just going to say, I think, obviously if that is the case, then, there is an exception the crew can use to report that the container's not at its agreed collection point, which if they're using that would not only obviously flag it in the system and, provide information to sort of the depot management team if they're looking at sort of exceptions. It would prevent a miscollection from being reported because the container hadn't been made available at the agreed point. So we need to make sure that that's being used so that we get that sort of feedback mechanism in place, because then if the resident follows up with a phone call or an email or etc., then it enables that conversation to happen to understand, if it's permanently moved or if there was an issue on a particular date that we can fix going forward. So, we just need to make sure all those elements are kind of joining up to make sure the problem can be fixed as quickly as possible and avoid any repeat issues.
Okay, so let's have a look at that when we come around to it next time then, because it's either the crews aren't using the correct updates, or actually that's not the case and they are just genuinely missing the assists.
I think, I suppose the other thing I would add, and Ian can kind of confirm if this is correct, because in the monthly contract meetings we've had reference to depot managers investigating different issues and wanting to get to the bottom of them. So I would expect this to feature. I think from my sort of historic experience of working in these services, the peak is in August and potentially has been an issue with holiday cover and people moving around while people are on leave. That needs to be managed, but that to me is probably an indicator that's an area we need to focus on when there's peaks in leave potentially. The depot need to be making sure that any replacement or temporary crew on around make sure they're following the same processes as they would on any other part of the service.
Yeah, okay, that's really helpful. It'd be good to know a little bit more about how the crew are notified. Whether is it an electronic bleep that goes off in the cab? Is it a
No, it's just on the tablet, Mark.
Just on the tablet.
There's no sound recognition to it. It's just
and is that sat with the driver then to make sure that the crew are okay, all right. The other slip looks to be on KPI 9, which is failure to carry out collection non-assisted. Is there that's a bit of a shift. Is there a rationale behind that one, please?
What was that, the non-assisted?
Yeah, the header that we've got in the report is summary of KPI 9, which is failure to carry out collection non-assisted.
That would be within a certain SLA, wouldn't it?
That covers a range of things around how the collections are specified. So it could be something such as bins not being returned correctly, and that could be a communal site or a street level property with its own bins. It could be about sort of containers being locked or returned to bin stores, that sort of thing. So there's a range of things that can apply to that one, if that helps.
Okay, all right, thank you, thanks, Joe. Kelly, you gave a good update in terms of recycling performance and rationale behind that. And I know that you sent over some detail recently to us at Woking about performance, historic stuff. So we'll have a look through that, and thank you for that. And also it'd be good to get the composition analysis, see what that may lead to. The only other final thing that I've got is obviously there was a bit of conversation earlier about bins at properties and making sure that they're authorised bins at properties. We had an incident last week, and I think it's really important that if we're out and about and making changes here, I think we just need to do this in a more coordinated way, because people are very passionate, as we know, about having their bins emptied. And if we turn up and don't empty a bin, it can be the crew that get the brunt of that unless we're dealing with it in a sensible way beforehand. So it'd be good to get some further background to what's being done to make sure that we are dealing with this in the most appropriate way to avoid any flashpoints for the crew while they're out and about providing their fantastic service for us. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll go through that a bit in my report, Mark, if that's all right. There's
Great.
a little bit in there about that.
Thanks. Okay, thanks, Ian.
Yeah, Joe, any comments on that? You've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just thought I'd come back. I think yes, we and it sort of touches on the point that Councillor Rise made earlier as well about communication of this. I think we've had very isolated queries / complaints in recent weeks where a bin that maybe historically been getting emptied by crew had stopped being collected, and we can obviously go through that process of explaining to the resident that it's not an authorised container, then they are only able to leave out one residual waste bin. But given the incident that happened, where there was some aggression towards a collection crew, which is absolutely something that we really can't allow to happen in Woking, that is an area that we need to make sure we're following up on, and it's on the sort of list of things to talk about with Ian. The team have been talking about it with the depot, or depots where it's been relevant that we need to have those conversations. So yeah, we just need to make sure we are doing that in a proactive way, so that there is some sort of understanding from the resident point of view of why something that might have been happening before is not going to be happening any longer.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, my apologies to Woking. I saw that Ellen joined and then dropped out again, but so thanks very much for stepping in on the Woking front, Mark. I see that Ellen is back with us, but maybe not able to speak openly in her train carriage. So hopefully between the two of you, Mark and Ellen, you can cover the Woking issues. Okay, right. So now over to Ian for your update.
Yeah, I'll share my screen. Bear with me 2 seconds. I'll put it into presentation mode. So hopefully you can all see that, because I do sort of lose you. No, I've got you back.
Yep. Yeah, we've got that. Thanks.
Excellent. Right. So we've got a few key headlines, first of all, which we'll go through. So there's the Mole Valley Workshop Floors Extended Programme, which is still continuing to disrupt operations. There's the national insurance increase that we've got, which I know is on the agenda later, so we can give an update on that. There's some potential high risk health and safety issues at a number of sites, and it's not just at any specific area. It is across the contract, which does include some commercial issues as well. So we've touched on that briefly there. So just to give, we've had some incidents recently where aggression has been shown to crews across the patch. We've had a number of meetings with JWS. We're putting them all on the system. I am batting away pressure from higher above me within Amy to stop collections in their entirety at these sites because of the aggression and the nature of it. I think they have come because we've basically said you're only entitled to have these bins, this number of bins, this is all we're emptying. Or there is contamination in the bins that shouldn't be in the bins, such as construction waste, engine parts come to mind. And when we say no to these people, there is aggression towards both the crew members and the threat of damage to our vehicles, which is unacceptable. We are in obviously conversations with JWS how we tackle this best in terms of a health and safety and welfare for our staff. So, ongoing communication, but obviously we need to inform these people that you are only entitled to this, and this is all we will be doing in the future. Any deviation from that, we will just be getting in our vehicles and driving away, hence what has happened in Woking. I can confirm that the area is being serviced at the moment. I'm getting updates at the moment that some of them have been done. We're moving around that at the moment. So, Mark, that just gives you that we have serviced it today. in its entirety, but there is excess waste and containers at these sites that shouldn't be there. So there's that. There's in terms of the welfare facilities at Mole Valley Depot, which was only fully operational this week, after being reported in October for the first time, there was a lack of hot water on site, which hasn't helped with our sickness rate with a neurovirus or a bad virus going through the depot throughout November and into early December, which hasn't helped us complete the service in terms there. And we do have fortnightly meetings with JWS, which are really constructive in terms of that, and they're ongoing. And anything that we need to bring to you guys will be brought via that meeting. Just moving on to health and safety, and this is from June to the end of November. We did have one riddle which was reportable. It was a cut finger, and the guy had an extended period of time off work because he didn't want to get the finger infected. It is a real minor issue that we are dealing with internally. A number of close calls have been really good, over 400 in that period of time, and I am expecting that to increase with what we're asking the guys to do. We're asking them to let us know anything that goes on now, how minor it is, and then we'll work through them. We escalate close calls to JWS as needed on usually on overgrown foliage, and which is restricting access, or issues such as we've just discussed earlier. So some good figures there. This is our service update just recently. It has been an improving picture in terms of where we have been. So it's been identified. Obviously, we've had this discussion before. It's been identified that service on the streets was not being fully deployed at Elmbridge. We've looked at that. We've got a real good plan in place now, and as quite rightly Kelly said, that's been improved over the last couple of months, an improving picture there, and hopefully that will continue through. And at the moment we are on December, and it's looking really good. Woking's been the focal point, I think, since July, with the workshop floor and the other welfare facilities issue we've had. So it's just, but I think the guys have coped really, really well on site with what they've done. And we had that peak in July, but then you can see it has improved, although slightly gone up in November, and that's due to sickness as well as the floor. And so that's done. The other, Woking and Surrey Heath, you can see the little peak during July and August, but then it's steadily come down. Woking had their peak in August, but that's come down. So overall, an improving picture across the estate. This shows you our sickness rates. I just thought I'd put this in just as interest. So our average in November is 3.01, which is below the national average, but and it was expected to come down in November. We all know that sickness in the waste industry does come down November, December for reason. That's historical, always has done. But in terms of individual depots, Elmbridge, their sickness has come down to 3.05% in November, and it was in October at 7.55%. That's over at nearly a 60% reduction in their sickness, which is really good. Surrey Heath, a similar pattern, so they're only at 1.18%. It was at 2.67%, so that's come down about 56%. The other two have had increases. Woking has gone up to 1.75 from 1.35, so that's about a 30% increase in their sickness. But Mole Valley has gone up to nearly 6% from about just under 4.5%. So it's a 36% increase in their sickness just in November. We are seeing that improving. this week. We've got people coming back from sickness. Last week was particularly bad. For that, we actually had a driver hospitalised through the virus last week. So it has hit the site quite badly in there. So moving forward, this is our action plan we've got in place for improving, and we're doing this all the time. Our improvement plan. So this is the workshop we've got. Implementing a tracker compliance tool, which gives us more control over the parts we carry in stock. We're still looking at recruiting an apprentice in Surrey Heath workshop, which would improve our service there. And we now have the doors have been repaired, so we can carry a full fleet of stock that we want to for repairing the parts, and the other depots can go in and do that. So the risk at Mole Valley, which the risk of resignation, we've eliminated that. The guys are back. They're happy with what they see on the workshop floor, apart from the watery ingress that we've got at the moment. They have started to move into there. In terms of fully operational, in terms of everything being calibrated and fully compliant, we're looking at the early part of January for that. And with no vehicles going off to third parties, we've still currently got vehicles at third parties, but nothing else is being booked in to third parties now. So KPS, so we've got a focus on Mole Valley and Elmbridge street services, which is ongoing and is improving. Mole Valley especially, they've got their streets out fully. Their leafing has been fully out. And it proved it from the last lads inspection that the service has been really good in the streets in Mole Valley. Elmbridge has been good the last few months as well with the lad survey, and we're in the lad season again in December. We are still we haven't done any in Mole Valley at the moment, but Elmbridge are doing their lad surveys at the moment. So the depot managers are looking at this on a weekly basis, if not a daily basis. We have weekly meetings with them to look at all the KPIs, to see the reasons why, especially on the assisted, the missed collections. We're looking at that on a daily basis with the depot managers themselves, but they're a weekly catch up with my principal operations manager, and anything that stands out, we dig deeper into that. Individual depots have all got their own action plans for the KPIs, so I'm sure if any of you spoke to the managers, they would all be happy to explain, what their targets are on that for you. And we're looking at also missed collections or similar that are caused by third parties. As discussed previous, we were having issues at the tip site. We still get issues at the tip site, but they're not as big as they used to be. But when we do have them, they do cause disruption and roll on disruption for a number of days, potentially, when trucks are unable to tip because they're stacked at the tip sites. So health and safety action plans as well. We've got these. We're elevating close calls, which you can see the increased number, and that helps us understand health and safety issues and feeding back to the drivers, loaders, that we are progressing close calls. It encourages them to give us more as well. So we have a weekly health and safety meeting with our compliance team and our competency manager, who sifts through all the close calls that come in and feeds the ones into JWS that are necessary, and deals with the others with the depot managers and the feedback there. So we have a little of an incentive and a league table, encourages people to put close calls in, and they have a little prize at the end of each month. Environmental side, so we've had to review all our waste transfer notes, especially at Surrey Heath, where we're compliant, and with the third parties that collect from the site, such as textiles, we've we've had to ensure that the off takers are giving us their waste transfer notes, and any issues we have, we go through JWS, who then go on to county to do that. Make sure they're there. In terms of vehicle idling, we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint, so the supervisors are out in the mornings monitoring that vehicles are not left on unnecessarily. As we know, into the colder season, the drivers like to be warm, the crews like to be warm, so they like to heat their cabs up before they go out. We're trying to eliminate that. And also when they're on their breaks, that they're not idling and all that. So it's an interesting project. We get some interesting comments back from them, but we're edging around that 10% at the moment. So it's we just want to get it underneath that 10% of the time at the moment. That's good. So this is our business plan moving forward, which you will go through, and it's progressing along nicely, actually, in terms of hoping. I don't think we're going to get everything done by the end of Q4, our Q4 this year, which is end of April, but majority of it will, and then the new one will come out. So yeah, garden waste, you can see there. Subscribers identified, containers, and it's just, there's lots going on with garden waste within all the areas. So our zero code was our health and safety. The one big thing which we haven't done yet, and I'm hoping to get done in Q4 rather than Q3, is the business continuity plan. I'm working with our group director on that at the moment. So we should have something in place early part of the new year, Kelly and Joe, just to let you know that. It's got white space issues, more container control on white space. We haven't really done much on that at the moment, and the same with the other stuff. But the KPI dashboard, we've got some agreed stuff that we're happy with. We just want to ask JWS if they're happy with it as well. So save on manual entries and that. The data cleanse I know has been done, which is really good, and we're ongoing with this data cleanse on the correct assets on each of the properties, which we're almost complete. Got to catch up with the lady that deals with our white space stuff next week to just see where we are, whether we can give JWS some more data early part of next year. What else have we got on here? So yeah, almost done on all the cab stuff with street cleansing as well. So I think it's just a little bit to do at Elmbridge now in terms of streets on the in-cab equipment. And where are we? Operations, route optimization at Woking. We're almost there on that. So and it's going to be, just to put your minds at rest, there's going to be no day changes for anybody in terms of how that works. It just means that some routes will be moving on to different vehicles. We're just trying to streamline the system there. And there's been a meeting this week with county on the route optimization between Surrey Heath and Woking and how that would work and what they can do for us. So I haven't had a catch up on that, so I don't know what's happening with that at the moment. And then fleet and maintenance, yeah, a lot done on fleet and maintenance, so that's still ongoing. And I think that's my last one. It is, yes. So I'm open to questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Ian. That's very thorough. I think, as Rosemary said earlier, perhaps if you could send us a copy of that.
Yeah, I will do. Yeah, it's no problem.
A couple of questions from me, first of all, if I may. I think you mentioned at the last meeting there was a problem on depot managers. Could you just tell us what the situation is there? You mentioned Michelle earlier, and I think Michelle came to talk to us about a year ago. Is Michelle the principal operations manager across all 4 areas, or is she just
no? So Michelle looks after Surrey Heath depot only. She's depot manager at Surrey Heath. Tracy Lynch is principal operations manager that looks after all 4 sites. We are currently without a depot manager at Elmbridge. So Greg has been off long-term sick. I have had encouraging signs that he is shortly able to come back to work, hopefully. But there's some other issues there. So temporarily, Mark Porter, who is our health and safety compliance manager, has been overseeing Elmbridge. He has got an operational background, which is why we asked him to look at that. We've had to put some admin support into Elmbridge as well, just to help him with the day-to-day stuff. So that's gone in. That went in November. So that's helping him with that. In terms of the other depot managers, Carrie's been with us nearly 2 years now, and Neil Hawkins, who is depot manager at Woking, replaced Tracy when she stepped up to be principal operations manager. So that's the management structure. So most of you, I think, would have met Tracy, but maybe not the other depot managers.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's obviously a fairly critical aspect, isn't it, to get a continuity of a depot manager running a particular depot, just to make sure it's a smooth operation.
Yes.
Okay. So hopefully Elmbridge will be sorted out soon. Okay. I was just going to mention that good that you brought up the vehicle idling. I've had a number of emails over the last few months about vehicles. I guess that when they go round, they sort of stop for a half an hour break, and I've had a number of complaints that they're sitting there on the road with the engine idling, and producing pollution, wasting fuel, etc. So good to see that you're going to try and tackle that one. I had a question about the Power BI dashboard and how that. Is that a sort of supplement to Whitespace, or is it more of a sort of higher level analysis tool?
I suppose it's more of an analysis tool for us, so we can dig down into how the depots are performing, how the contracts performing. I think Whitespace does feed it. It feeds from Whitespace.
Okay.
I had a really good meeting with Whitespace just to catch up. I've never used Whitespace before I came on this contract, to be honest with you, so I didn't know how it worked. I've used other stuff, but I think there's a lot that Whitespace can be used for. Right.
Yeah. Good. Final one from me. The business continuity plan. Then, what's the purpose of that? Could you give us an outline?
So I suppose business continuity with any business is what happens if we have a major incident, cyber attack, how do we continue business as normal? As we know, a cyber attack is probably one of the biggest issues these days with the amount of technologies that's used. Everything these guys do is on a tablet, electric. If your computers go down, you've got no information. You're relying on knowledge of the people doing the route that everyone's bins still get collected. So how do we put in place measures that if that happens, if there's floods, if a depot the depot is no longer, something happens at the depot, that's the sort of things that we'd be putting in there and all that. So I suppose business continuity, emergency procedure, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like it has sort of risk register aspects and how you mitigate all those risks.
That's it.
Fine. Okay, thanks very much. I think Kelly, you had your hand up much earlier, so I'll come to you first.
I think Councillor Rise was actually before me.
Was he first? Quick off the mark. Okay, Morgan, over to you.
Thank you. It's just about the idling, which I'm very pleased to hear that there was kind of work being done on that. I'm just wondering kind of what's the feedback that you're getting from the team? Because it's like, how are they? Do they understand? Is it like how? I guess the question I'm really asking is how are you selling it to them to ensure that they understand the reasons why, and it's not that they just think of it as just being kind of an overbearing boss, but it's what the reasons for kind of trying to reduce the idling is. I'm just wondering what's the kind of communication between Amy and the crews.
An employee, the first thing is I suppose you have to break it down for them. Obviously, you look at the environment aspect first of all. You explain that to them. And I suppose the way I do it when I spoke to them, I said you wouldn't leave your car running for that long, would you? So there's a cost element there as well. Not that we should be putting that emphasis on them, but it's the bigger picture for the company is environmentally. What are we doing and for the future? So yes, it would be lovely to have electric vehicles, Councillor Rise, right across the estate, but it's not practical, is it? We don't work in Westminster where they do have all the electric vehicles, but yeah, I suppose it's getting their buy-in on, you're looking after the future, really. And some of them are really, really good. Some of them want to engage, but others was, but I'm cold in the mornings. Yeah, well,
I guess my follow-up question, if I may actually, just is there anything that Amy can do in terms of they are cold in the mornings and they're leaving and working at a much earlier time than I leave to go to work in the morning, and it's much colder. So I completely understand why they would have their engine running to warm up their cab. So I'm just wondering, is there anything that Amy could provide them? I don't know even what it could be. It's just of a mitigating. Is there anything that they're asking for? Is there anything they're saying? Well, I want you to give me this, and then
I suppose they can ask for anything, and if it's feasible, we'll give it to them. We give them coats, we give them gloves, we give them hats. If they ask for thermals, they would get thermals. I don't have an issue with that. So yeah, winters, it's not nice out there for them. We give them change of clothes when it's wet as well. I just think it's been habit, which we need to break that habit with them.
Thank you. Cheers.
Okay, thank you. Right, I'm not too sure who's next because I haven't got any order of hands. So Kelly, shall I come over to you first? Because I think you had your hand up fairly early.
Thank you. So I just had 2 points to cover really. The first one is, Ian, you mentioned the individual depot action plans for the KPIs. Is there any chance they could be shared with us and we could have monthly updates? I don't know if we tie it into the operations board meetings or something like that, but it would be helpful for us to understand, what each depot is doing to work on improved performance, really. So
once I've refined it, Kelly, you can, because at the moment it is a jumble of information.
Wonderful.
So, yes,
I'd prefer the refined version, I think.
Yes.
So
you don't want to see the number of tabs on the information I get. So yeah,
it would just be really helpful to us to see what action each depot is taking and what they're working on.
The interesting thing of it is what is probably the wrong term to use, but the repeat offenders. It's been that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then the other one that I was just going to ask is basically Christmas. Obviously at Christmas we see increased loads, increased tonnages, sometimes higher levels of sickness. So it was just kind of what reassurance can you provide to the districts and boroughs, that services will be delivered and performance will remain high over the Christmas period, Christmas and into New Year.
I can talk all day about it, but it'll be what it'll be. In terms of what we have in plan, we won't have we won't have as much garden waste vehicles out on the road, but we'll put them on other products to help with extra recycling, extra domestic waste. We will still cover the garden waste service off. We are the only contractor that I think Suez have got going in that are doing garden waste over Christmas, but we will still do that and cover everybody off. But we're not expecting the volumes to be high on that, which is why we've lessened the vehicles. In terms of sickness, I'm hoping it doesn't happen. I think we've got over the worst. I hope we've got over the worst. And we don't tend to see it. I think last year we improved our sickness over that period as well. The encouraging side is that we do the catch-up Saturdays, the free Saturdays are between Christmas and after Christmas, and we pay a premium for them to do that. So everyone likes a bit more money at Christmas. So hopefully they'll all be in. Would I say I've got a contingency plan every day? No, because I haven't got people just sitting there waiting for me to call them and get them in. But you know, if it's a prolonged period of time, we'll have something in place to catch up. So it's like any other week when we get sickness levels, Kelly. Really. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks here. Mark, I can see your hand is up as well.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Ian.
Hello.
First of all, thank you for confirming that you're returning to the location today. I think that's been jointly supervised with Joint Waste as well. So that's really helpful. I suppose and also for collecting the extra side waste as well, because obviously a delay in between collections that typically happens. So it's good to shift that there as well for this occasion. So appreciate that. Again, just going back to the matter, I know that you'll engage with Joint Waste on this. You know, if we've been collecting 5 bins at a property for the last 8 years and we want to change that, it's probably best to let the resident know if we can beforehand before we do change it to avoid that flashpoint. And I was just thinking similarly, I know you mentioned about the route changes where we're not changing days, but it might be we're creatures of habit, aren't we? So if my bin gets collected at 3 o'clock and I'm putting I know that we tell them to put it out by 6:30, but if there's something coming as a result of that, then again, let's just make sure that we can inform people.
Yeah,
Remember, it's a 6:30 a.m. start, so I get you a bit.
Fully agree with you. I know it's a bit like the miscollections. I usually get my bin collected at 8 o'clock in the morning. They haven't been there, so it's missed.
Yeah.
It all happens.
I get that. It's just let's just make sure that we're providing that customer service and bracing them for any changes.
Yeah.
And then the final one, I accept, you know, there are separate conversations going on here, but just in terms of garden waste for us, you know, the day-to-day aspect of this, I just want to make sure that the IT system is taking the subscription fees from the subscribers. I think that's quite a reasonable conversation.
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, good. And Rosemary.
Thank you. And thank you, Ian. Good to hear about the addressing the idling. I've got 2 questions. One's about the de-leafing programme. I had a query from a resident about a particular road yesterday. I don't know if it's a question for you or for JWS really. So if you've got a programme, can we say that road's going to be done this week, next week? You know, can we give that sort of information? That was the first question. Well, and can I tack on to that? Will everywhere have been visited once by Christmas? So that's the first question. And the second question is just a quick one. You went through the route optimization. Had Mole Valley already been done previously? Because it wasn't mentioned.
Yes,
okay.
The answer to that one. And in terms of would every road have been done by Christmas, every road will be done by the end of December. That's on the schedule.
Right, thank you. And what about, you know, a particular location? How can we say when that's going to?
I don't know where we'll get the information from, but I mean we can make the routes available to JWS. That's not. It's on the white space system, in cab system.
Right. So I've already emailed to ask that. I mean, it was only yesterday, but it's just, is that information readily available? I mean, thank you,
Councillor Hobbs, you know what it's like. You know, we could go down and sweep it today, and then we have a leaf fall, and it looks like we haven't done it. So so it's just this time of year we live with the weather.
Well, this is a rural road which is covered with trees all the way along.
Well, yeah. So I suppose rural roads are difficult because there is no edge to work to either, as well.
Yeah.
So we have to be really difficult down there so we don't damage habitat for wildlife as well. So.
Thank you.
But if we were to see some sort of schedule between now and the end of December, could we not do a better communication to residents about that, so that you know, people are not parking in the street and blocking the vehicle from sweeping up all the way to the gutter? it's probably more one for JWS than you.
Yeah, we have tried communication with that. There was one particular road I know was causing us trouble. We went down and we leafleted it, and it still didn't make a difference.
Okay. Joe, did you want to come back on those?
Yeah, just Councillor Hobbs, yes, if you've sent that query about that particular road through to the team, we can obviously look for information and respond on that one, and to get help from the depot on confirming those details if we need to. And yeah, that's been in terms of making information available, that has been a sort of conversation we've had ongoing a little bit this year about how best to provide that. In some instances previously, we'd had sort of end of week updates on progress from depots so that we could share some information online, and it's not happened in the same format this time, so it's been a little bit harder for us to do. So I think, you know, that's something we need to try and improve upon again in you know, future versions because of the leafing programme, because that was quite a valuable way of helping residents understand where we'd already been and where we're still outstanding. So you know, that is something we really do want to make available.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Just one from me. I was obviously disturbed by your opening slide about the amount of aggression that's shown to crews, which seems to be on the increase. I mean, can you put your finger on why you think that's changed so significantly over the last couple of months?
Yes, I can. It's because we're starting to say we can't take that.
Right. Okay. So a little bit like the additional bins that we mentioned with Mark. You know, maybe we do need to have some sort of communications policy in place here then, so that residents are forewarned that you know, we are going to take a tougher line on contaminated bins. You know, you mentioned vehicle parts and everything else, so that they know that there is a change and they're prepared to that, and they can adapt accordingly before it gets to a rather aggressive response on the street.
Yeah. I mean, it's what with communication trying to have with we are having with JWS is, you know, you've got, let's say, particular area should only have 15 bins, or but they've got nearly 150 bins on site, and they're not all bins from your project. So people have obtained containers from other areas and are using them.
Yeah. No, well, I fully understand that, you know, there needs to be a piece of work done there then, so that there aren't so many bins out that they're unmanageable. And they're bins that have not been properly supplied and registered. But yeah, okay. But you know, I think we've agreed then.
And you know, we've just taken the stance. You know, the guys. Yeah. I think it boiled down to they've got to the tipping facility on other occasions, and it's had commercial builders waste in, engine parts in, and it's been rejected there, or had to tip in a separate area. Do you know what I mean? It's just, and it causes an issue at that site. So you know, us saying we can't empty that has caused and a little bit of aggression towards the crews.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's one for you know, for Joe and Kelly to pick up. I think it's really important then we have proper communications, and it might be that comes back to SEP as well. You know, proper communications with residents on what is acceptable waste and what isn't, and the issue with extra bins as well. Okay, Morgan.
Sorry, one final, and I'm not entirely sure if this is the right place to bring it up, but I'm going to. It's just I sent through an email, and I sent through an email yesterday, so I'm not expecting there to be an answer right now. It's just with regards to in Chobham and Brickhill Lane, that residents there have received a letter saying that due to the surface of the road, the state of the surface of the road, they aren't going to have their bins collected. And this is very similar to a situation that was in Lightwater, maybe earlier this year, or Lightwater. So I sent it through to the Surrey Heath email address, just so Joe's aware. I don't need you to answer now. I just wanted to raise it, as I did promise Councillor Tedder that I would, just to bring it up. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, any other comments or questions? Yes, Mark.
Hi there. Just one in terms of the contamination, because I think the practice of locking out bins probably hasn't changed since contract start. So, what has changed in? Are we saying that the crews haven't been doing it before, or what's the step change of late?
They have been doing it, but they've been. I don't know how to explain it. They've been doing it because they've felt pressure to do it and didn't want to cause any animosity. Obviously, we've got to a point now where we're having to pay, or it's costing us more money to empty sites that have got extra bins, contamination, and we've had to take a commercial view to say we're not going to do it now.
Yeah. Okay. So the contamination, I mean, obviously the guys should be stickering the bins anyway, and I don't think that practice has changed. Yeah. But the extra bins, I understand that. I think that's the communication that we need to forewarn, isn't it? But I think we also have to recognise that if it's very clear that these bins are unofficial bins, then that's one thing. But obviously, we've got a lot of people with a lot of bins out there, people that have purchased additional bins that might change them when they move house in the borough, etc. So I think there's quite a lot that plays into this. So I just want to make sure that we've got a structured plan to this going forward, because I think the first thing is we've got to make sure we maintain that customer service. We've got to make sure we avoid the flashpoints for the crews. So I think it'd be good to just tease out some of these examples and let's just get a clear structured approach to how that's addressed.
We're in conversations with JWS about it. So I'm hoping we can get a meeting scheduled next week. I know Sarah's been off, so go Kelly, Joe. They've been really busy. I know that, but we really need to get a meeting booked in. We've given our data to JWS, and I think they're just looking at it at the moment. So
okay.
Okay, good. Thanks very much, Ian.
Joe's got a hand up, Councillor Tinney.
Oh, sorry, who's that?
It was me, but it's fine.
Joe,
Just to reiterate what Ian had said is that we've got some information from Amy about some specific sites where there are problems. There's discussions going on either within JWS or with Amy, and in some cases with the authorities to kind of verify what's actually on those sites, what the correct number of properties, etc., is, to make sure all of those sort of baseline bits of information are all accurate so that we can do that. And I think the only other thing that we've been sort of wanting Amy to make sure that the crews, the staff are encouraged to do is if they are in a position where they are unsafe, that they are also reporting that to the police, because we need them to be aware of it. They might not always be in a place where they can take particular action, but if that's the first port of call really. If they are sort of we've got examples of getting blocked into a road, for example, so they can't exit in the vehicle, and that's an obstruction and that shouldn't be happening, and the police need to be aware of those behaviours, because we might need to sort of have further conversations with them, and that reports are quite an important first stage of enabling those discussions to happen about how we can manage the safety of the crews properly.
Okay. Right, good. Thanks very much. Anyway, we'll stay with you, Joe, then, for item number 6, the work programme update.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just going to just really give a summary of the paper that's in the pack there, just to really sort of highlight and give you an overview of delivery progress of the work programme, some of the key outputs and the achievements from the past 3 months. So I'll start with that. Since we last met, we've got a new sort of internal performance dashboard that helps us review up-to-date service data and monitor progress, and that's particularly helpful for things like tonnage trends and information on what's actually being collected from the different material streams, and it's helping us to look at where we can sort of see spot issues, changes in volumes, etc. We've made improvements to some collection services, some existing developments. So some examples, we've got our Walpole House and Monument Court in Elmbridge, Norfolk Court, Duke's Ride in North Homewood in Mole Valley, and enhancing services at flats above shops on Camberley High Street in Surrey Heath and Chertsey Road in Woking Town Centre. So that's where we're working with either managing agents or developers to try and see how we can improve the collection services at place that are already occupied. But we've also been setting up collection services at some new developments, Laurelwood Place and Rockhopper Court, 2 examples in Elmbridge, additional phases of the Princess Royal Barracks, which is in Surrey Heath, Botanical Place in West Byfleet and Woking. We've also seen some early implementation of some of the recommendations of the Bring Bank review in Surrey Heath and Woking. We completed the chewing gum funding that was cleaning that was externally funded across Elmbridge, Mole Valley and Surrey Heath. As Councillor Rise mentioned earlier, there's been a recent rollout of some separate food waste collections to some additional flats and communal properties in Surrey Heath, which has just taken place. We've been out to look for new suppliers for some of the print materials we need for service operations. So that was tendered, and we found a new sort of lower cost supplier to give us those materials that have now been delivered to depots to help with that communication with residents that we've been talking about today. Bin hangers for rejected bins that explain to the resident why they weren't able to have that collected, and so on. We've also done some resident communications when we've had some service disruptions, and the channels that we're using as JWS have expanded because we now have a JWS Facebook account which has recently launched. Depot audits were completed in October. These were site visits that were undertaken jointly with JWS and Amy at L4 depot locations to review safety and compliance areas. That report's being finalised, and there'll be some actions that we need to follow up on with Amy, but that's, you know, as a on the ground exercise, that element's been completed. And Ian's touched on this already, but we have been asking for an updated business continuity plan from Amy. We do really want to see if we can, once that's been reviewed and brought up to date, undertake an exercise to test those continuity arrangements and make sure that if there are any areas that look like they could be bolstered, that's tested through an exercise with a third party. There's been significant progress with the re-procurement process, including bidder clarifications, site visits, and the initial bid assessments that are currently underway for the submissions that were received. So just generally overall, the report gives some snapshots of progress and delivery across the programme. The full details are provided in Annex 1, and we are asking that members note this update and the outcomes that we've delivered so far, but happy to welcome any questions on any of the actions that are in the programme.
Okay, good. Thanks, Jo. No questions from me. Any other questions from anybody? Okay, well, shall we just formally note those recommendations? Morgan, Rosemary, and Ellen?
Yeah.
Okay, all duly noted. Thanks very much for those, Jo. So we'll come on. So we now need to exclude the public. So we turn the recording off. So if you could tell us when you've done that,